Thank you, Steve, for joining me today. We're going to rant today. We're going to do a little rant.
I love it.
So, the question of the day, Steve, what's the question of the day?
The question of the day that I have for you, Julie, as a professional podcaster, as you are, what are some good tips that a podcast guest should be aware of on before and during a podcast? As a guest, what are some good pointers, some real tangible bullet points, right,
Yeah.
of what a guest should do in advance and during a podcast appearance?
Okay, great. I love this question because every day I have guests on my podcast. And the very first thing is, as a guest, you want to be following the show of the person that you're going to be on with. And you want to have listened to a couple episodes and you want to know a little bit about the host. That's the first thing. Do your research.
That helps obviously pick up the vibe, right, too, of the podcast. If it tends to be more playful or jovial or more serious and reserved, right? So it helps get the gist, and then of course the subject matter will help dictate the directionality. I would think a little bit too, right?
Yes. Yes. The second thing I want to say is have an introduction prepared for the host. So I want to make sure that every person listening is hearing this statement. Have a canned two-sentence introduction for the host to introduce you. So, in the host language, I'd like to welcome Steve Ramsey to the Stay on Course podcast. Steve Ramsey is a blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
I want to make sure that every person has that ready because the host shouldn't have to go looking for that. You should be able to provide that for them jump straight as soon as you get on the call.
Right, and that would be relevant in a lot of settings, not just a podcast, right? Some way to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you do just in a quick snip.
Yeah. I want to quote the book from David Averin. It's called Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With. He wrote a book called Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With, and you, as a guest, want to be ridiculously easy to be a guest on someone's podcast. I think that to me is like such a great nugget right there. Just be ridiculously easy to be a guest. So have your headshot ready, have your link to whatever it is you want them to share. One of the things that you should be doing as a guest is having one clear call to action, not seven. Oh, you can find
Mm.
me here, you can find me there, you can find me there. I want one clear call to action and where you can find me. And if you're giving me a free gift, download this free gift, all of your audience. I'm giving you this free gift to your audience, or find me at steveramsey.com.
Mhm. Yeah, I think
And
that's so important to be simple, right? In our approach, even in a call to action, that simplicity speaks volumes. And I heard it said somewhere the other day, and it made me smile. Is that school tells us that we need to write a 5-page essay, but the real world tells us that we need to tell them in 7 seconds.
mm,
And the reality of that is that we need to have 5 pages worth of understanding in order to be able to say it in 7 seconds. So let's make sure we don't confuse the 2. So I think simplicity is worth its weight in gold, in any facet of explanation, or call to action. So you're right on the money.
yeah, be simple. One, one place, one call to action, one place to find you. People are only going to be able to do one thing. And our first gut reaction is like, oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me here. You can see me there. But the truth is, have one page on your website, send them there, and then have that one page send them everywhere else if you want them to do everything else. But really, it's
Yeah.
one call to action, one call to action. And make sure, okay, here's the other part to this. There's two other things. Make sure you have a bunch of stories ready to go. Don't be like planning all your stories or thinking that you're going to figure out all your stories in the moment. I have this thing that I work on Monday nights and before I speak, we call it the story vault. So
Mm.
you should have a story vault of all your information that you're going to have your go-to stories. And last Monday, in fact, we worked on one of these stories. We worked on an intro story so that
Mm.
when we go to events, we are telling a story and telling instead of telling them, "Hey, I'm a coach. I'm Julie
Right.
Riga and I'm a coach." I say something different. I say, 2 years before my father passed away, he left me his life story to finish, and for 2 years after, I wrote his life story, and that story became the foundation of the Stay on Course podcast and
Wow.
all the work that I do, and all of a sudden, they
Oh, yeah.
people start listening to me because I'm not Julie Riga the coach, I'm Julie Riga with a story. It's a different thing, and that is an energy share when I go places, and that when you introduce yourself on podcasts, same thing. They're going to ask you, and one of the questions I always ask is, what are you busy working on right now? Tell us a little bit about how you got to this place in your background. Well, I don't need the half hour version of that. I need a short version of that because I don't want to spend all day on your story. I want to spend a little bit of time. But as a guest, if you haven't thought about that, pre thought about that, then you're not going to be the best guest possible. So I think it's in the preparation, the stories.
That makes perfect sense. And I think the authenticity that comes with a story, even at the onset of talking to somebody, creates immediate common ground that they can relate to. A story, okay, this person, I'd rather hear their story than what they actually do. I could give a rat's you know what about that. But if their story automatically becomes relatable because everybody has a story. So you're right. That's so powerful. Instead of just saying, yeah, I sell technology equipment or whatever it is that they do, instead of saying a story really is the proof in the pudding for sure.
It's important. It connects people to you,
100%.
especially in person. You go to these
Mm,
networking events. The networking events are interesting because sometimes you get these table events. They're called like speed networking, where you sit at big tables. So much more powerful to open up with the story.
totally. I actually was at a networking event this morning, as a matter of fact, Julie, and I was went up to this guy and I said, "Hey, John, if you had no work to do today, what would you be doing?" Then he said, "Wow, that's awesome. I would be on my boat." And then all of a sudden we started engaging in the conversation and developing common ground and then went on from there. So I think conversationally connecting with people is so important. And it even can be done in a podcast with a little story. So
Mm.
I love it.
Yeah. You know what? I had an excellent guest on my podcast last week, Joe LaRussa. You got to listen to his. Actually, I wanted to send you his podcast. It's called Homegrown Leadership. We talked about homegrown leadership, and I think you'd appreciate it. It's all about like how you lead your home rather, than
Oh,
talking
wow.
about business. Really good
Yeah.
episode.
Oh, I'm going to look that up for sure.
Yeah.
Where can I find that again?
That would be Stay on Course. The podcast, my podcast, Stay on Course Ingredients
Right.
for Success. You can find it on Apple, anywhere you find podcasts. But Joe and I had a great conversation. Do you know what he did? I was like so impressed with Joe because he said to me, Julie, he goes, do you mind if I tell people right now about our podcast? And I was like, wow, that's the first time anyone asked me that. He took a screenshot of us and he did a post and he said, just want to let you know, I got off the most amazing podcast with Julie Riga. Stay tuned for when it drops. Okay.
I love it.
And honestly, no one's ever done that for me. And I thought to myself, what a great guest. I said, what a great guest this guy is. He now literally took a screenshot of us and is giving us me pre promotion and him pre promotion.
Full disclosure, Julie, I know this is not a formal podcast, but I just screenshot our conversation here, and I'm going to do the same. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. I was amazed by that. I thought it was so cool. And now I sent him over the information for the podcast. I sent it to him, I emailed him, and I also messaged him on LinkedIn because you know what? It made me feel like he cares. Like
Mm,
he actually cares that he was on my podcast and he's excited to share it out to the world.
how valuable is that? That's awesome.
Yeah, because honestly, every single person that's on my podcast, if they share it out, that also helps me. It helps them. But to be honest, my podcast is getting 30,000 downloads a month right now.
Whoa!
I'm at
Wow.
30,000 downloads. I'm charting. I was number 38 this week on the charts for Apple in entrepreneurship, and I started charting in business. So I was on Apple at number 113 for business this week.
Oh, I didn't know I was actually speaking with a celebrity. Please remember us little people when you make it to the top and you're right behind Joe Rogan, right?
I mean, well, and this is the thing, like podcasting requires a discipline, right? So I'm dropping 3 episodes a week. I
Wow,
mean,
that's a
sometimes
lot.
we're reposting an old one of those days, but 2 new episodes a week and 3 drops a week.
Now,
And I
the
Mhm.
question for you, sorry to interrupt. I just had something pop into my mind, and my mind is fragile, and I'll lose the thought.
Yeah,
Can a podcast be chopped up into little shorts and little pieces of content that can be used? In my little understanding of podcasts, I think that you can chop it up, right, and create little nuggets of info.
all day long, all
Yeah.
day long. So the best thing is that you do a podcast and you chop it up into shorts, and then you don't have to do shorts.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I know that, like, Alex Ramosi and people like that, they do that a lot, right? Where they'll do a long form something or other
Mhm.
and then break it up into a whole bunch of short form stuff, so
All of my posts are all every single almost every single one of my posts come from my podcasts.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, I don't know if you see any you see some of my posts, right?
Yeah, oh,
Um,
yeah.
my videos, they all come from podcasts, every single one of them, almost. I mean, I do when I'm doing it and I'm not, like, in this setting, I am doing it with my other microphone, the one that everybody cracks up about, but, I'm doing them from podcasts because it
Yeah.
it's just like a no-brainer, like, every week if I'm talking to 2 new people, I'm having all this new content every day.
Uh,
So it's really easy.
I was on a podcast recently, and I loved the format, which was no pre-scripted questions. And I think that was really powerful because it pushed me to really be prepared for anything, right? And as a professional in my field, I want to make sure that I can conversate and communicate articulately and simply, no matter what the subject matter. And I think that's really important. So you sometimes do you have pre questions sometimes, or is it all, hey, we're going to wing it kind of thing? Wing it, but not wing it, right? You need to be
Well,
prepared.
mine's a little different. I have a format. So my podcast is formatted, which means that it's called Stay on Course Ingredients for Success. And
Mm,
I ask every person that comes on, what are your 3 ingredients for success? For you, it might be for business growth. So I'm
mm,
going to say, what are the 3 ingredients for success for business growth? We're going to talk about the one, 2, 3, and we're going to dialogue on each of those 3 things. And I do that for a couple reasons, right? I don't want to make questions. I don't
mm,
have any questions. I just tell them the format. I'm going to ask you your favorite food. I might ask you, how did you get to this place? I'm going to ask you, what are the 3 ingredients for success for business growth? We're going to dialogue on each of those ingredients. Where can my audience find out more about you? End of story. Then I end the podcast and we're done. And so I have it in a format so that if I want to ask a question, I can just ask it whenever I want to. But that's the preparation. That's it.
well, I'm gonna remember that for when you invite me on your podcast, and I hope that you will, that the formatting is important because 3 ingredients for success, oh, man, they're so powerful, and I think that it can be spent time quality spent time preparing for that in any time, not just in advance of a podcast, right? So if we spend time thinking about those things all the time, I think we'll be better off for it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
In my podcast, I make sure that it's not just any ingredient. It's not like a life ingredients I'm asking for. I'm asking for what are the ingredients for success for whatever you're an expert at.
Mm,
So if you're an expert at homegrown leadership, I want to know what are the 3 ingredients for success for homegrown leadership. That's what we talk about. And when I hear people talk about whatever it is they do, we have a pre-call. So I always have a pre-call with people because I want to make sure that I'm picking a topic that isn't something that I just did yesterday
right.
and that is worthy of the 3 ingredients.
Yes.
Because sometimes what ends up happening too is like I'll listen to somebody and I'll hear what their expertise is and I'll hear one thing that lights me up and I'm like, "Oh, That thing you just talked about right there.
Mm,
Yeah, okay, so yesterday I interviewed a guy, we talked about shared leadership. And I was like, "Okay, what is that? Tell me about shared leadership. That's interesting. Let's talk about it." We build a podcast on that. So I listen for the thing that is unique in that bubble of things that they know, and I curate the podcast with them. So on the pre-call, that's what I'm doing. I'm
mm,
curating the podcast. I'm listening for the thing that makes them unique and different, and I'm building out the podcast. And what that does is it helps them also figure out what's interesting for them, and then they get to use that thing in a keynote or whatever it else is they're doing. But it also helps the listener remember what they're saying because it's like, here's the 3 things I want you to leave with today. This, and this. And then it makes everything easy. I want everyone to learn something when they listen to my
mm.
podcast.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. That's good stuff. It really is.
So, any other questions about being a good guest? You think I covered everything?
I'll tell you what, I think the preparation, having good stories, and 3 ingredients for whatever it is that you're talking about, those are some pretty key takeaways for sure. So I'm gonna work on that for when, hopefully you have me on your podcast.
All right, Steve. Well, thank you for this conversation. I think it's been great.
Absolutely. Likewise. Julie, we'll talk real soon.
Thanks so much.
See ya.